Giving credit to the savior, so you know I'm approved. Whole team Olympiads, cause I run with the best. Send the shots, not a problem that I need to address. If the message leave them blue, then they left it on red. Olive Garden rappers, most of y'all just here for the bread.
Welcome back, guys, to the Grounded Podcast. I'm Michelle.
And I'm Marissa.
And today we are going to be talking about, are you mad at God?
Yeah. Or being mad at God.
Or, yeah, being mad at God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like we've had our moments. You know, as most Christians, as most believers do, have moments where they're mad at God. The revelation that I received, that we both received, is that when you're mad at God, you're obviously going through warfare, because there's nothing that should make you mad at God, but generally you're mad at a situation. Mm-hmm. So maybe you're mad at something not going the way that you thought that God should have did it, or I've had experiences in the past where God maybe gave me a word and I kind of put my own limits on that word as far as like timing and the way that things happen. But so when it didn't happen within that timing, or it didn't happen the way that I wanted it to, I was upset with God, even though He never put those things there.
Right. So
a lot of times we, as people in general, are mad at God for something that we did, maybe. Mm-hmm. that our flesh, it's usually our flesh. Mm-hmm. Just like when the people in Israel, when He freed them from Egypt, and then they were in a place where they were like, okay, we don't have water, we don't have this, food. They got mad at God, like, why did you bring us here to die? Did you I mean, they were talking to Moses, but Moses was speaking, but it's kind of like you're angry because things don't look the way that you want them to. God saved them from slavery. So a lot of times we think that God should be doing more, or that we think that God should be doing a certain thing or something in a certain way in our life, when maybe that's not the way that God needs it to happen. Maybe that's not the way that will stick for you. Maybe you think, oh no, this will be great, but if it happened that way 2 weeks down the line, you'd be right back where you started. Mm-hmm. Rather than, sometimes He knows some people need a slow process, just like when some people give their lives to God. Some people have an encounter because that's what it will take for them. Some people have a slow process because that's what it will take for them. But a lot of times we look at those things, and maybe we are looking at the way something happened for somebody else, or maybe we're looking at how we feel in it, or how hard it feels, or how much it hurts, that it makes us look at God like He's the problem. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Rather than our mindset being the problem, mm-hmm. rather than our intention being the problem, rather than our posture being the problem, we look at God as if He's the problem. Mm-hmm. And I know people say like we give a lot of credit to the enemy in general as believers, which is true, but also I think there are some people who don't realize that the enemy does do things. Mm-hmm. A lot of people I've seen a lot of people, whether it's, on social media, or sometimes in our lives, we see people like to blame everything on God, or they like to bring God in it when things go wrong, or they, things like that. A lot of times, are we looking at the lives of the people that these things are happening to? And we're not saying like, oh, because they don't serve God, all these bad things deserve to happen to them, but they're missing a certain amount of covering that protects them from these things, because the enemy does do things in this earth, on earth, even though God is above him. Because we like to say like, oh, it's God versus the devil. Let's not forget, God is God. The devil was an angel, so it's not like they're not on the even playing field. But God did give, the enemy does have some power. God gave angels some kind of authority. So on earth, when things happen, sometimes it is the enemy, you know? So being mad at God for maybe something that the enemy did, or being mad at God because of yourself, something that is fleshly, I want to say it's not fair to God, because it's not, but I know he can handle it. But it's still, when we are in situations where we're mad at God, it's important for us to evaluate what are we really mad at, what is really the issue, and pull back the layers, you know, and kind of see what's going on.
No, that makes sense. I can say for me, the reborn me, I don't get mad at God. I can't afford to get mad at God, to be honest with you. Like, it's just, you know, it is what it is. And when I say that, I truly mean it. Like, when I feel anger, when I feel sadness, they're of earthly things. After the trauma that I went through, I don't question God. I ask questions, but I don't question God. So for me, it's like when something happens that's sad, I just pray and ask for understanding. I pray, you know, if it's something of close to me, I pray for God to reveal. So that way I can have a better understanding. Not why, but to understand, you know, where, you know, what his, not what his plans were, but where, you know, what God, you know, his purpose in the in the matter. That's what I look for now. When things happen, I look for purpose.
Or like, why is this happening?
You know what I'm saying? Like, I look for, but not in the sense of I'm asking like, oh, why God, why did you let this happen? I'm like, God, like, make me understand, you know, why you took, or why this X, Y, and Z happened. Not why did you do this? You know,
it's like give me peace and understanding what's going on.
And I truly believe that, you know, the reason why I don't get mad at God is because I decided to surrender to Him. I asked Him for peace. So although I can be sad, I can be mad, it's never at Him. The anger is never drawn towards Him, because He provides the answers that I need, the peace and understanding that I need, the control that I need, you know. So I'm obedient to Him. So with that obedience, I just fall on my knees and I just pray, or have a conversation with Him to better understand. So I'm not gonna say I don't understand why people get mad at God, and I'm not gonna say that you don't have a right to be mad,
to feel how you feel.
You know, because you're entitled to feel how you feel. But before you start questioning God, and before you start saying God did X, Y, and Z, let's put some perspective into it. You know, like, and if nothing else makes sense to you, then ask Him for it, you know, to reveal, you know, the answers that you're looking for. I think the sad thing that, and I think it's an emotional thing, is when someone loses a family member to violence, and then you tell me, why God? Okay. Like, ask yourself first, you know, not ask yourself, but why don't you ask God to help you reveal, you know,
or give you peace in it,
or give you peace in it. We can't be mad when people choose to live a certain lifestyle, and the
fruits of that lifestyle kind of
every decision we make has consequences, whether they're good consequences or bad consequences. There is a cause and effect in everything.
Not that we want these things to happen, but that's just the way it is. When you do things, there's a cause. There's fruit behind it, whether it's going to be good fruit or it's going to be bad fruit. That's just the way that life goes.
Imagine if you know, in the Bible, Adam and Eve were like, mad at God because God kicked him out of the garden. Well, what did God tell you not to do?
Yeah.
It's a cause and effect.
Yeah.
You know, he gave you rules, you didn't follow them, so now you're out. But you can't be mad at God for a decision.
Well, like now you have all these curses that you have to live with. Well, not curse, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, and you can't be mad at God because
he gave you
those,
he gave you the
rules.
Make. Yeah. I think that's a good point. A lot of people say like, well, God, how could you do this to me? He tells you exactly how to handle certain things. And if you choose to go outside of those things, he'll even show you what his will for you is. So when you decide to go out of that parameter, you're no longer, I'm not God, so I'm not going to say like what he's going to have his hand on or he's not. But being in his will, there's a grace around it. But when you go outside of his will, there's not not going to say required. Yeah, required for there to be a specific, you can't be in disobedience and expect the same reward, I guess, from God. As far as it says, he who dwells in the secret place of the Most, you're not being with God. God doesn't know you. Are you going to sit here? I mean, I know he gave his life for everybody, but he's also not going to override your choices. He's not going to, he knows what choices you're going to make. So when people give their, like if God gives somebody a promise of something, maybe he said you're going to have this house or whatever, but you've recognized that the people at the bank don't want to give you a loan, or your realtor, whatever it is, or your business, whatever. He's not going to override their choice, but he knows what's going to eventually happen. Whether that's by the means of eventually they're going to change their mind. It's not him like forcing these things to happen, but he knows what's going to happen. So when you're outside of those parameters, a lot of times he sets those parameters for our protection. And when we choose not to walk within those parameters, well, all these things happen. I'm not going to say that you're going to walk out of those parameters and you can never come back, because sometimes that's what happens. If the will of God, if he says you are going to pastor X, Y, and Z church and you go out and do whatever, at some point you're going to still end up, you know what I'm saying? But while you're out there, let's not act like you're not going to be going through all this hardship. And that's because you're not in alignment with God. You're not walking in the will of God. And when you come into obedience, you recognize there is a covering. Mm-hmm. There is a covering that is over you, because that's just the way that it is. So to be mad at God for a poor decision that you made is unfair. It's unfair to you as well, because you're not being honest with yourself. Also, I think as far as, when we're being mad at God, for instance, let me be completely transparent. Maybe a few days ago, maybe last week, I was frustrated about something that was going on that I didn't even necessarily recognize was frustrating me, but something that was going on in my life was frustrating me. But I went to God in prayer and I was talking to him about this thing of frustration. And I felt like it was like something, you know how when you say like you'll surrender, you can tell like there's a part of you that's not really doing it. So I kind of tried to get ahead of it and kind of was telling God, like, this thing is frustrating me and I think it's affecting me more than I realize. So I know that if this festers and this continues on, it can grow for me to have a hardened heart. And I don't want that hardened heart to be towards you. So if any part of me is mad at you or frustrated at you because I'm frustrated at this thing, please help me through it. Please remove it. You know what I mean? Like, get it out of me, uproot it. And I repent for it, because I'm not trying to be mad, but I understand those things can grow. Just like with humans, you can grow to resent somebody over time if you don't deal with whatever. It could be something as small as maybe your roommate keep leaving they socks or something, or keep dropping their shoes right in the middle of the floor. oh, it might little, I mean, some time go by. You're like, oh, it doesn't bother me. It doesn't. Eventually, if it really does bother you deep down, eventually you're going to start to be like, you know what I mean? And you could grow to resent them. And it's not necessarily you hate the person, but it's something that you didn't address earlier. Yeah. So I think sometimes when people are mad at God, it's something that they allowed to grow and fester that they never dealt with, that maybe they unintentionally blamed God for. So I think it's important for us to kind of check ourselves a little bit, especially when you're being prideful about something. A lot of times people can feel like, well, God, I deserve X, Y, and Z, or why aren't you doing this for me? I'm here for you, so why don't you give me this? That's being prideful, but also that pride can turn into a disdain for God,
It's crazy because there are two verses that came to me while you were talking. The first one is, and I know Psalms is like
that's her thing lately. Yeah,
like literally anything you want to know, there's always something in Psalms.
It's 100 and
I know, crazy, but no. Psalm 69. Let's see what the. Hold on a second.
Mm-hmm.
So it's Psalm 69, verse 32. It says, "The humble will see their God at work and be glad. Let all who seeks God's help be encouraged."
Mm-hmm.
I just feel like you can't, when I went back to what I was saying, you can't really be mad at God, because if you see God for who he really is,
if you know his character,
you understand that there's a reason and a purpose for everything. And Gabriel talked about this. You're not entitled to know what those
you're not entitled to know everything. Yeah.
So just when you do feel like you're getting mad and you see those things, the anger and all those things are happening, you're about to start saying, God, why? Just pray. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think for anyone who feels like, you might ask, oh, well, what should I do? If I'm starting to feel like I'm getting mad at God, and it's just like, just the thing that I always say is prayer.
Yeah, and I think that also.
Prayer, like, fall on your knees and be like, just what Marissa was saying, like, ask him to remove those thoughts, ask him to remove those feelings from you, because you don't want to feel that way.
Yeah, you don't want it to grow. And how you were saying that if you know God, in order to do that, you need to dwell. Just as I was talking about, it says, he who dwells in the secret place of the Most High. You need to be there, or you're not going to understand who he is. It's kind of like you trying to understand some regular person without spending time with them. Yeah, you can hear people here and there say how they are, how their character is, but you don't truly know. So if anybody told you anything else, you could easily be like, oh, okay, well, no. But if you know them, you'll know, like, no, they wouldn't have did that, or they would have did that. God also says that everything works together for your good. So even the things that we see as a bad thing happening, or maybe it really is a bad thing happening, he will turn it around. He will turn it for your good. He will restore that place. But if we just sit here and look at a skewed view of it and just look at the negative for the negative, rather than seeing it like, okay, God, I know this negative thing happened to me, but I know that you will restore. I know that all of these things. And it also says that he's a father, like I've said in a previous episode. He's a father, and the word says that he knows how to give his children gifts. He knows. Why would he give you a bad gift? He's not going to withhold good things from you. The word also says that. So if you know the word and you know those things are part of his character, when you start to think opposite of those things, you need to kind of check yourself, like, okay, where is this coming from? Because I guarantee you, at some point you allowed the enemy to whisper lies in your ear, and you took it, and you didn't cast them out, you didn't rebuke them, you just let them sit. And and over time it might have shifted your perception of God. Or maybe you allowed other people. I've heard people always say, people in the church are X, Y, and Z, and that's why I don't whatever. That's why I'm not a Christian. The fact that you're allowing people, imperfect humans, flawed people who do things that they shouldn't be doing, so they're not really walking correctly, but you're allowing people to turn you off from God. That doesn't make sense to me, because God never said follow the pastor. He never said follow the elder of the church. He never said follow your fellow believer. No, he said pick up your cross and follow me. So yes, we do need each other to help edify each other and to help, on this walk. But if someone's doing something wrong, they're still a human. You know what I mean? They're not God. If someone's doing something wrong, they're doing something wrong. But that does not mean that God is doing something wrong. Yeah.
It's crazy. Do you ever find yourself testing God? Whenever...
What do you mean testing God?
In a space where... Think about a time where you were mad at God. Mm-hmm. And you're like, you know what, God? Since you try to play me, I'm going to do X, Y, and...
No, because I think that I fear God. Like, I have too much respect for God to test him in that way, because that's very spiteful and it's very petty. And I try also not to do that in my regular relationships. Maybe I might have back in the day, like I might have had a different perspective, like, oh, okay, well, I'm gonna get you before you get, like, I don't know. But now it's kind of like, why would you do that? Maybe I might, because Gideon, quote unquote, tested God, but it wasn't really test. He was kind of asking for confirmation to make sure that it was God. I've done that where I'm like, okay, God, I'm having trouble hearing you. So if this is what you're saying, let it happen in this way. That's confirmation. Yeah, I'm not testing, like, how, like, you're a mom. You know how your kid, you might be like, don't drop it on the floor. And they looking right at you and just, that's what I'm saying. Like, I don't be testing him like that. It's just, yeah.
Yeah. Because, Deuteronomy 6:16 says you must not test the Lord, your God, as you did when you complained at Messiah. Mm-hmm. That's why I asked, like, have you ever tested or contemplated about, like, what, God, I asked you for this, and this is how the outcome came, not what I wanted, so I'm going to do.
No, yeah, I think there was once where I might have got mad at God, but it wasn't like I'm gonna go do. I was just kind of like, you know what, I'm tired, so I'm just like, I'm done. Like, I'm not going to, it wasn't like I'm gonna get back at you. It was kind of like, I'm just, maybe this isn't what I'm supposed to, like, maybe this was, maybe I don't want to talk. I don't feel like talking to you right now. Like something like that, rather than
when people get mad at God, I sit there and I ask myself, like, so you're mad, what are you gonna do?
No, because
no, seriously, like, you're mad, so what are you gonna do? It's like, if I'm mad at you, I can, like, hit you, fight you, or yell at you, or just never speak to you again. But when you're mad at God and you decide to, well, with the exception of the physical part, not speak to him again, like, what do you think that does for you?
Yeah,
you know what I'm
saying? But I feel like even when you decide not, if you decide not to speak to him again, if you've already been, like, in relationship with God, like real relationship, that it's in you. So you might be like, God, you know what? I'm not talking to you anymore. You go do whatever you want to do. It's still in he's still there, and it's not gonna feel right.
Like Jesus.
No, because it's in there, and it doesn't feel right. If you made it a habit of dwelling in his presence, and then all of a sudden you're like, I'm not talking to you anymore. It's like,
you were never really.
No, but I mean, like, something, it just doesn't feel, something in you doesn't feel right, because it's supposed to, the Spirit of God is in you.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever told God I'm done with you, but I probably just didn't do.
I think I've been like, I need a break. I need a break.
I've never actually physically said, like, I'm done with God. Mm-hmm. I just continued to live my life halfway in.
Oh, you just didn't say it, but you kind of
didn't say it, but I mean, because I always knew, like, that's why a lot of things that I could have been doing, I didn't do, or could have been somewhere and I'm not there, because it's always been rooted in me. So it's like, as much as I'm not really, for lack of better words, dealing with you right now, I'm still not going to do this, because I know it's not right. Yeah. Whether, because obviously because I'm a Christian, because if I wasn't a Christian, I wouldn't know better.
Right.
But if I like know something's wrong and I feel it in my soul that it's wrong, I would say no, it's because God's telling me, like, don't do that.
Yeah.
You know, but in the back of my mind, and I'm like, yeah, I know it's God, but am I going to do it? Am I going to do it? Like, I go back and forth with myself. But I've never actually sat there and been like, I'm done with God.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I'm like, look, God, I'm tired. But I want to know, like, you know, that's a real question I have for people. It's like, do you ever get to that point where you're just like, I know people get to that point where, like, you know, I'm tired. But then what do you do afterwards when you say you're tired? You just tired and then you start all over again? Or do you be like, do people get to the point and they're like, I'm tired, and then they just give up? And then is your life better afterwards?
Yeah, that's true, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know, because I've never done it before. So I'm like, because my life did not get better after I stopped just, you know, like. But
yeah, the thing is that the enemy will tell you that it will. He'll tell you that it'll get better, you know, if you leave. The thing that the enemy wants is for you to be mad at God, because he's after your faith. So he might target your faith about a specific thing, but eventually, if he keeps like playing with you about that thing and playing in your mind, you can grow mad at God, and then you grow mad at God, you grow resentful of God, and then you end up leaving, and then he don't got your faith. He targeted your faith. He got what he wanted. You know what I'm saying? So it's important to recognize these things, even if you might not be able to recognize them early on. Maybe you may not be able to recognize that it's happening. But when those negative feelings start to come, I guarantee you that it is not God making you feel that way, and you need to reevaluate. So I want to ask you guys: are you mad at God for anything, for loss? Maybe you being mad at God is stopping you from being obedient to God. Is your anger for God right now stopping you from walking in righteousness and walking in obedience, or doing that thing that he told you to do? Maybe he told you to do something you don't want to do. Maybe he told you apologize to somebody you won't feel like apologizing to. But are you mad at God? Are you mad at God? And if you've been mad at God for a long time, retrace your steps and see where it started, because that's where the root of the problem is, and that's the thing that needs to be addressed. That's really what it is. What are you blaming God for?
That you should be blaming yourself.
Or blaming anything else, because if you can choose, like a lot of people say, it's a mindset. That's why he asks you to renew your mind, because the way that you think and the way that you continue to think and allow those thoughts to fester eventually becomes the way that you move. So I wanted to ask you also, because you said that, you know, you don't get mad at God. You probably never really did get mad at God. Well, I don't know if you've been mad at God before, like before you rededicated your life, but you don't really get mad at God anymore. You kind of just try to see it from a different perspective. So I wanted to ask you, for the people who are mad at God, or find themselves like being angry at God about situations, or, you know, maybe they'll be mad at God, then they're on fire, then they're all mad at God. You know what I mean? How can they get to a place where they are handling it the way that you are handling it?
I think we kind of touched on it a little bit. The biggest thing for me was to surrender, was to pray for peace. To me, when you go to God and you either rededicate your life to God, or you're giving your life to God for the first time, when you sit there and you say, Lord, I surrender to you, all my faults, all of my whether it's bad, good, anything, I give you me, and wholly, purely, just as I am, and I need you to fill me up with your spirit, so that way I'm living the Christ life that you want me to live. And I was throwing there to the best of my ability, because I know I'm gonna slip up. It's like to the best of my abilities, because when I do slip up, because the first thing I want to do is like, I need to go pray. Like, I don't need nobody else to tell me that. I'm like, you know, and I need to go pray, because I don't know what Michelle that was, but that's not me.
Right.
So I think truly surrendering to God, once you do that, truly do that, there is no going back. So in my opinion, that's how I am to where I am now, to where I'm like, I don't get mad at God, because I gave him my life, I surrendered to him, and I put all of my trust and faith into him. I'm not saying you won't be sad, I won't saying that you won't get mad, but I'm never mad at him. I might be mad at the situation or what I may have done to cause my life to be where it's at, and I don't want it to be there, but it's not his fault, because I talk to him all the time, you know, so I make a choice when to listen and when not to listen. So that's just my take on it.
Yeah, and I to that point, when you said you don't get mad at God, you get mad at the situation. I challenge you guys, the ones who are mad at God, look at what you're mad at God for, and then take it back to the word and see if it aligns with his character. See if it aligns with what he says about you. See if it aligns with those things, because if it doesn't, then it wasn't God. It wasn't of God. It wasn't of God. And he's waiting for you. He cares about you. You know what I mean? He's a loving father. He's a comforter. He's your shepherd, and he doesn't want you to be mad at him. He doesn't.
I was telling someone this morning. Don't let a temporary situation make you make a permanent decision. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like, don't ever be in the moment, be mad, and then say something, do something that's going to follow you forever. Yeah. Because it's only temporary. Yeah.
And maybe this just came to me while you were talking as well. Not that it necessarily has anything, but maybe some of you are mad at God because he didn't judge someone else in the way that you felt that they should be judged about something that they did to you or did to somebody you love.
But how would you know that?
Because maybe they see that they're out here living life, but the thing is, whether you see them being judged or not, that's not your business. The word says, vengeance is mine. Vengeance is mine. So whether they receive their judgment here on earth by the situations that happen, or they receive it after they die, that's not for you. Know what I mean? Like, you need to heal that part of you, and you can't hold on to that unforgiveness for the sake of yourself. God, he cares. You can't, I know sometimes things happen to us and it's like, God, well, why didn't you stop it? Or why don't you, I don't know, kill this person, like whatever. But he and you think that he doesn't care. He cares. He cares, and he's going to handle that person in the way that he sees fit. He's a sovereign God. You're not God. And we understand that some people do hurt people, but we aren't the ones who get to determine how they are paid for that, whatever they did. So release yourself from that. Release yourself from that anger at God because he let so-and-so get off scot-free. I promise you right now, no, they did not get away with it. Whatever it was, whoever it was, they did not get away with it. You may see on the outside, see in the world that they might have gotten away with it. I guarantee you that they haven't. In the eyes of God, they have not. Having the judgment day come. Yeah, they even if they repent and give themselves to God, give their lives to God, yes, they will be forgiven for those things, but that doesn't mean it's void of their consequences. They still have to deal with those things with God. Now they would be accountable to God. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, there's been things that maybe we did that might not be like super bad, but before we gave our life to God, and we gave our life to God, but it wasn't like we just didn't have to deal with the repercussions of those things. Maybe we lost friendships. Maybe we lost a business deal. Maybe we lost money. Maybe, it's all a part of the process. So if that is why you're holding on to anger for God, I ask you to let it go. I really felt led to say that. So maybe somebody out there needed to hear it.
Amen. That was good.
Yeah.
So that's good. Yeah, I don't really have much to say.
I think that's it. Yeah. That's the end. Just know he loves you. And he, even though you might be mad at him, he's not mad at you. Amen. So
thank you guys for joining us on another episode, and we can't wait to see you guys next week on a new episode.
Bye.
Bye.